Welcome to the Sleepless Academic, soothing PhD narration for curious minds. We narrate real PhD research papers to help you learn something fascinating while you unwind. Each video features slow-paced readings of academic research. Whether you're a curious insomniac, a student, or just love educational sleep aids, this channel is for you. Today's PhD article is authored by Prima Alam, and we're so excited to bring their research to life. All profits from this channel go towards an educational fund, so every listen supports learning, not just for you, but for others too. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, get comfy, let your mind wander, and enjoy tonight's PhD. Discussion. Summary of findings. In this thesis, I have explored meanings of sexuality through lived experiences of 46 young people in Dhaka and demonstrated the ways in which a life-world perspective can contribute towards our understanding of sexual health and well-being. Firstly, I critically review what we currently know about sexual health and well-being as experienced by young people in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and Nepal. The review, Chapter 2, highlighted how parental expectations of premarital sexual abstinence and silence around sexuality contributed to inadequate sexual health information for young people in South Asia. Restrictive gender norms, such as dominant gender narratives and mobility restrictions, also limited young women's sexual and reproductive decision-making. None of the 13 studies included in the review addressed diversity of sexuality or gender identity. The absence of such narratives underscores an urgent need for research examining lived experiences of and health inequalities within sexual and gender diverse communities. My empirical data revealed more about young people's lived experiences and challenges of navigating sexuality, Chapter 5. Young people described lives punctuated by negative experiences supported by social norms about gender and sex that helped ensure silence and lack of accountability or justice for survivors. Negative experiences affected their ability to conceptualize having pleasurable and consensual sexual experiences, free of coercion. The dominant model of traditional monogamy, staying with one sexual partner over a lifetime, as well as a focus on women's chastity, was a strong driving factor in decision-making around premarital sex. This contributed to the practice and acceptance of, as well as silence around, abusive behavior. Ahmed's phenomenological framework of heteronormative straightening devices, mechanisms directing people towards heterosexuality, gender conformity, and procreative marriage, helped me to identify structures upholding normative sexual behaviors and to understand how queer young people in Bangladesh navigate these in their everyday lives. Young people have to bend to and against heteronormative straightening devices at home, in public spaces, and within healthcare and other institutions. Participants spoke about confronting marriage normativity, straightening the life course, compulsory heteronormativity in public space, performing straightness, heteronormativity within healthcare, straightening as care, and consequences of failing to embody heteronormativity, unbecoming straight. Young people in the study had very little social support and navigated this by seeking representations in the media and friendships with other LGBTQ identifying people. These findings support global literature about discrimination and inequalities confronted by queer youth and adverse consequences for their mental health and well-being. My analysis also provided an opportunity to see whether this framework was applicable within the context of Bangladesh, as there is little information from existing studios to assess this. Finally, I presented Sexual Life Worlds of LGBTQ Identifying Young People in Bangladesh, Chapter 7. I adapted a phenomenological, reflective life world research approach to capture the essential aspects of sexual intimacy as described by 14 LGBTQ participants. This paper showed how sexual intimacy as experienced by LGBTQ young people in Bangladesh consists of a desire for consensual, sexual and romantic relationships with sexually matched partners, while navigating heteropatriarchal sexuality norms. The statement captures the essence of young people's sexual life worlds and indicates a universality around sexuality, while still making space for intersections of diverse lived experiences and social orientations. In particular, the analysis explored negative emotions around discretion, safety concerns, and stigma over heteropatriarchal sexual morality. Annex K provides a summary of main findings and further research recommendations from each of the 4 papers presented in this thesis. Annex L also provides an overview of the research themes across sample groups. Discussion of research themes. This qualitative study adds to existing research in South Asia and elsewhere exploring young people's lived experiences of sexuality and the challenges they face when navigating socio-sexual norms. In terms of themes, the research contributes to expanding evidence around relationship dynamics and sexual life worlds, prevalence and consequences of gender norms, and straightening devices as experienced by non-conforming young people. A key strength of this thesis is its incorporation of diverse lived experiences of sexuality within the context of co-constructed life worlds. My theoretical framework, Chapter 3, also emphasized the 5 aspects of the life world: lived time, lived space, lived relationships, lived body, and lived emotions. Rather than centering my research on predetermined health risks, sexuality-focused biographical interviews made it possible for participants to prioritize their own lived experiences of sexual well-being. The research focus intended to move away from causes and treatment of ill health in favor of a contextualized, people-centered approach to understanding well-being. For example, I was able to analyze the lived body and lived emotions aspects of queer young people's life worlds through their negative feelings of failing to embody heterosexual norms. This is an important contribution, as there is limited published qualitative research in the field of sexual health in Bangladesh. Furthermore, health needs highlighted by participants, such as widespread experiences of coercion and a lack of support available to survivors, have implications for further research as well as future interventions. Annex M presents a summary of main themes across all 5 life world domains. The life world framework allowed me to scrutinize and make explicit the implicit and invisible meanings around everyday experiences of sexuality. My analysis described the world as embodied, physical, and practical, although I did not explicitly differentiate the interlinked domains. Instead, the life world domains collectively informed the richness of experiences and allowed me to further explore thick descriptions with participants. While it is not possible to capture any given experience in its entirety, Annex M shows how the life world domains encapsulate different elements of the key themes from this thesis. For instance, findings around harassment of feminine presenting bodies in public spaces incorporated all 5 domains. Lived space, for example, safety concerns around the home, affluent areas being perceived as providing more safety, places becoming associated with abuse. Lived time, for example, experiencing harassment on an almost daily basis, safety concerns at night. Lived relationships, for example, not sharing experiences of everyday harassment with others. Lived body, for example, appearing non-normative to the world. being gendered and harassed as a result of being feminine presenting, and lived emotions, for example, anger, a sense of helplessness, self-blame. My doctoral research also provided an opportunity to see whether heteronormative straightening devices were applicable within the context of Bangladesh, as there is little information from existing studies to assess this. Further research using the framework of straightening devices can help public health professionals to identify more barriers confronted by non-conforming young people. Previous qualitative research in Bangladesh and South Asia has focused on cisgender heterosexual health needs, Chapter 2. The inclusion of queer experiences in this study provides new insights into crucial, context-specific ways in which sexual and gender-diverse people understand themselves. This thesis highlights important questions for those advocating for queer rights in Bangladesh. How can interventions support queer youth while acknowledging that queer visibility presents safety concerns, for example? My thesis highlights the multifaceted nature of silence, discretion, and concealment around sexuality. For instance, taboo of talking about sexuality extended to silence around sexual harassment and abuse, Chapter 5. This, in turn, meant that young people whose lives were affected had to deal with the consequences without any support. Young people cited feelings of guilt or shame and a fear of being judged or blamed by others as common reasons for not reporting abuse. These findings correspond with global research. At the same time, an ethnographic article from my systematic review also shows how heterosexual identifying young people in Bangladesh use silence around sexuality as a way to negate uncomfortable conversations with parents and protect their good boy-girl image, Chapter 2. Similarly, LGBTQ identifying participants also use discretion to ensure safety and avoid homophobia, Chapter 6 and 7. However, I identified a complexity in having to conceal queerness as a protective or risk factor. Discretion was considered a safer option than visibility, and therefore a widely accepted way of being sexual within the queer community. There was also a constant fear of being outed as queer. As such, the burden of concealment was often more pronounced due to the insecurities about being discovered to be queer, with subsequent familial and social ramifications. This analysis supports existing research on discrimination against queer people as well as minority stress. Further research. My research explored meanings and lived experiences of sexuality and see how a life-world perspective can improve our understanding of sexual health and well-being. While I endeavored to be inclusive of a wide range of experiences, there are many avenues for further research in addition to those I have outlined throughout this chapter. Overall, more large-scale research is needed to ensure policy, education, and healthcare advances with greater inclusivity and accountability. Various social orientations were considered for this study, including sexual and gender identity, marital status, ethnicity, and religion, education and professional background, sexual experience, and age, etc. See Chapter 4. These social orientations were based on the focus of the study and gaps identified through literature review and communication with sexual and reproductive health researchers in Bangladesh. It was not possible to include or analyze all these different intersections. Intersections between the categories can be investigated in more depth. For example, a younger demographic, 15 to 17 years, could be included to explore the sexual life worlds of students in school. Class analysis around different lived experiences of sexual and gender identities could also provide insights into broader challenges confronted by young people. Although some of the participants grew up in different areas of the country, most of the narratives referring to public spaces and health services in this study were based on urban settings. As such, further research is needed to understand the experiences of peri-urban and rural areas where young people may be facing different challenges. Again, while I recruited young people with varying characteristics, such as different religions, disabilities, and sexual and gender identities, it was not feasible to explore all these intersections in depth. For example, I was not able to report on distinctions between young people from matrilineal ethnic groups and their peers or married and unmarried young people. Similarly, I was unable to recruit intersex people, gay men who identified as tops, or individuals from the Hijra community, and their experiences should also be investigated in future work. It would also be useful to explore themes, such as straightening devices, in more depth, using a larger sample to better understand the various aspects of lived experiences. From a phenomenological standpoint, it would be useful to explore different subgroups, such as specific sexual and gender identities, as well as narrowing down the phenomenon of study. Given that my research focus was lived experiences of young people, I could not address the perspective of other actors, such as healthcare professionals, teachers, or parents of young people. Examining interpersonal relationships, structural challenges, as well as current sexual and reproductive health-related policies and interventions would provide more context-specific information on how to effectively advocate for the rights of diverse young people. Due to the dearth of research on sexual and gender diverse young people in Bangladesh, I had to rely on reviewing global literature. As many of these other studies were based in high-income countries, such as the UK and USA, the recommendations from these studies need to be further examined to be applicable in Bangladesh. The lack of research on unmarried young people's experiences of sexual intimacy in Bangladesh means that my findings are exploratory. There is a need for more in-depth research around the nuances of consent. Likewise, while I reported and carefully translated verbatim terminology as used by my participants, it was outside the scope of this thesis to examine how their use of language may have impacted meaning construction. It would be beneficial to further explore normative global discourses and Anglophone linguistic hegemony of queer experiences. And that brings us to the end of this chapter. If you're still awake, thank you for listening. And if you're already asleep, well, that's exactly what we hope for. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more narrated PhDs to help you relax, drift off, and maybe learn something beautiful along the way. Until next time, sleep well and stay curious.